everyone, welcome to another video. Before we get started, my apologies for not recording over the weekend and yesterday. I don't know if you guys can hear in the background, but what's been happening around here for the last few days is that one of my neighbours has decided to basically redo their entire house and garden. So all I have heard for the past 3 days are various power tools, which are still going on right now. So if you can hear things like that, I do apologise. But short of not making videos at all, there's nothing I can do about any background noise that you might hear. So what we're going to do today is pretty much finish off our look at Sitcom completely. As I've been doing over the last few weeks, I've basically got a list of videos that I think are sort of additions to things that already exist on the channel, so areas where perhaps I feel like I may need to put a little bit more information in places, and so that's what I'm doing at the minute, going through all of those ideas, all of those videos, and popping those onto a list so that I can get those made in the next few days and weeks. Thank you so much to those of you who have filled out the questionnaire. That's done now, so I'm going to be having a look at the results from that, and from that maybe adding to that list or changing the way that I do a few things. So I'll give you guys an update on that as soon as I've gone through all of that information. Today what we're going to be doing is having a look at the settings for Friends. We're quite fortunate for the settings here in that I went to Friends Fest in December, so I have images of some of the settings which I'm going to talk through in more detail rather than have the written information up on the screen for you. So let's get started. We're going to deal with the minor settings first. So we have Ross's apartment, which is quite bland and minimal. Obviously it indicates that he has a lack of meaning and a lack of possession within his life, which is emphasised by the fact that he says to Joey that he came out of the relationship with just his friends. And that again emphasises this idea that he's going to be relying on his friends a lot, and it brings the group closer together and also anchors towards the title as well. Now equally, the very minimal apartment with the very minimal furniture could well be relatable to audience members who are just starting out. So Friends was originally sort of marketed at early 20-somethings who were sort of just making their mark in the world and just setting out on their own. So this could be a way of connecting with them, because it's likely that they're not going to have too many possessions either. Now, at the restaurant where Monica's on her date, at the time, it's worthwhile remembering that this would have been a very high-class setting. So although it looks today perhaps a little bit dated and perhaps a little bit drab, at the time it would have been very sophisticated, and that adds a level of sophistication to Monica's character. It's very relatable as a setting for a first date and sort of gives this idea of hope for how the date is going to work out overall and perhaps what it might end up leading to. And then obviously we have the kitchen setting where Monica works. This doesn't reveal too much because we don't actually get a decent look at the kitchen. This is something that is developed as the series continues. But what we do see suggests that Monica must be able to work under pressure given the job that she's doing. She's working to be a chef, and that she's probably also very methodical and organised, which again is something that's emphasised as we go through the series as a whole. Now, as I said, I went to Friends Fest in December, so I have got images of the settings such as Central Perk. The angle of the images looks a little weird because I was trying to get everything in, so it's sort of a panoramic view of the setting itself. But I thought it might be useful for me to talk through different parts of the setting and have a look at what they do. So obviously we have the orange couch here. We've then got the chair which usually Ross or Chandler sits in. I think it's actually classed as Ross's chair, which are very worn. They look like they've been used quite a lot, and so this gives this idea of something that's very comfy, very homely. The fact that we've got this sort of paisley rug here, we've got mismatched furniture, is sort of this idea that it's lived in, that it's a very homely sort of place to be. We can tell that it's perhaps a little bit trendy, or that it's marketed, again, Central Perk itself is marketed at younger audiences because we've got things like the sort of rustic looking coffee table here, sort of like this idea of this shabby chic thing going on. So this might indicate that the place itself is marketed at a younger audience. Obviously, when I went, it was December, so it was dressed up for Christmas, which we can see through the decorations that we've got going around here. we've got Phoebe's stage over here, so not in the pilot but in future episodes it's a place for performance and adds to the individual characters as well. So we've got that added element of characterization which we see. In terms of a technical aspects of the set, it's very easy to get multiple points of view. So from where we were standing sort of just down here outside of, if you don't know whether you can see the black tape down here, we were standing just outside of that to take this photograph, which is where a lot of the cameras would be, because the audience would be obviously facing the set as we've got here. So from this view we could have them facing the double doors, which a lot of the cast come through. We can have them focusing on the sofa, we can have them focusing on an individual chair. You can see the counter, so when we have scenes with Gunther, which are later in the series, we've got sort of that ability as well. So there's a range of camera shots that you can take here, camera positions that you can take here, which makes it quite a wide open space for crew and cameras to get into, and that helps as well make this set look quite large. So it emphasizes the scale of the coffee shop at the same time. So hopefully that was useful for Central Perk. Worthwhile mentioning as well that obviously the couch is quite iconic in itself. So obviously that's reminiscent of the title sequence, which is something else we got to recreate at Friends Fest. Monica's apartment then, again, taken as a sort of as a panoramic shot. Again, you can see the tape here. The tape would indicate where the audience would be, so they would sort of be back this way, facing into the apartment. Monica's apartment was absolutely massive, predominantly because Monica's apartment is sort of multiple settings in one. So when we're in Monica's apartment, we never really get this view of the apartment in its entirety. We tend to see either this section here, the sort of lounge section, or we see the kitchen section. We don't really see the whole lot all in one go. So that's why this set is particularly large. Monica's apartment seems a little bit higher class, and we've got to remember that in terms of storyline, Monica inherited the apartment from a relative. I think it was from her grandmother. So it's not going to necessarily be to a 20-something's taste, which is why we have sort of props and set dressings that would be perhaps stereotypically associated to a older audience, such as the drapes, such as the posters that we've got in and around the apartment, which seem a little bit more sophisticated than perhaps the palette of a 20-something-year-old. It does seem homely, it does seem comforting, and so it does in that sense seem quite welcoming, and that it can be seen through the sort of colour palettes that we've got. So we've got quite a warm tone to the floor, we've got the sort of yellow on the cupboards, the photo frame obviously is on the door, it's hidden by the wreath at the minute, but that's on there, and that's quite iconic in terms of the show and has become a symbol to represent the show in itself. Within the apartment as well, we can see how there are multiple chairs. It's almost like having Central Perk in an apartment. So because the friends all gather here, you would expect there to be multiple places for them to sit, and so obviously this not only welcomes the other characters in and acts as a base for the other characters, but also welcomes the audience in as well, because it feels like there's a place for us in this apartment. In terms of filming and how that might work, none of these doors opened, so we couldn't go in and see any of those. Certainly this door back here, and where there would be a door to get onto the balcony, that doesn't exist. There isn't actually a door there at all. That, I believe, is Monica's messy cupboard, and you couldn't get in there. You can't get into the bathroom because those didn't open. What they did have, which if you're interested, I'll put in another video, they had interlinking sets, so where the cameras and the audience would be here, if the characters were moving from Monica's apartment into Joey or Chandler's apartment, which again we don't see in the pilot but we do see later in the series, the characters could walk out of this door, which was linked to the set for the hallway, and then straight into Joey and Chandler's apartment, which were linked in that way. So a camera could track all the way along this set here to follow the characters out of the door. Likewise, the audience would be able to see them moving from set to set, which would add that element of continuity to the narrative as well. So that was quite interesting. Hopefully you guys found that useful. I'm not going to put up any key terms today because this was a sort of a different video in that I'd got the actual images to talk through with you guys. If you have any questions about any of the settings, if you want to pick out specific details and maybe have a go at analysing those, then by all means go ahead. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, you can get in touch with me through my social media on both Instagram and Twitter. You can also pop a comment in the comment section below and I'll get back to you because I do answer every single response that I get. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you hit the button next to it, then you get instant notifications every time I post a new video. And I will hopefully be seeing you guys tomorrow for another video.